the subjects that has been, I think, very badly handled through the years by the research ethics establishment and by the government is this issue of the compensation of people who have injuries in research. And it's puzzling because it's not inherently the most difficult issue, either conceptually, morally, or practically, but it's basically been stuck in a rule which is very different in the United States than in most other advanced nations. A rule which basically says it's all right to conduct research without making any promise of taking care of or taking care of the injuries or the losses suffered by a research subject, as long as you're clear that that's the terms on which the research are going forward. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if you can shed, since you've been involved with that issue in your various capacities as advisor and commissions and someone who's written about this for years, do you have an explanation for why this is an issue that's been handled as poorly as it has been?
It's bad advice given to and then issued by the insurance industry. They say research is essentially a venture into the unknown. That's a very, very dramatic way of putting it. They don't want to be underwriting compensation for an unknown risk, a risk that's unknown in both probability and in magnitude. Even though all of the examples that we have of trials of no-fault compensation, University of Washington at Seattle, their payout over 8 years was $5,000. That's because they carefully dissociated the innovative therapy from risk of research-induced injury. The Swedish experience, where they only had 3 claimants in the entire duration of the program, and as by my reading, 2 of them were not injured by the research at all. All these experiences show that there's vanishingly small risk, but I think the resistance has always come by those who speak for the insurance industry.
So it's not coming out of the research community itself. On the other hand, you can also say that we're not hearing from the research community frustration to the point that they would say to the insurers, figure this out, look at the evidence that Bob Levine just cited, get over your fear. Your actuaries can predict things that are less likely than this. Certainly they can do this. In other words, it hasn't been something where the research community says, we need action.
If our roles were reversed, Alex, and I were interviewing you, I would ask you to elaborate on the excellent report that the National Bioethics, or the President's Commission, put out on compensation for research-induced injury. And the examples I gave you on Sweden, for example, are from that. The Washington, Seattle experience came early enough so that I was able to put that in my own papers for the National Commission. No, you don't hear an outcry from the research community, but you don't hear an outcry from the research community for almost anything in the field of research ethics. On the other hand, I have been members of review committees, data monitoring committees for various clinical trials conducted by federal agencies. And sometimes somebody connected, a project officer, will say, well, shouldn't there be compensation for research-induced injury? Look here, the SIOM's International Ethical Guidelines say it's a right and the right cannot be waived. And they say, you wrote those guidelines, or, What about it? And I'll say, you're not going to get to first base with the federal government. One of the ones was the anthrax, post-exposure prophylaxis for anthrax vaccine, where CDC lobbied very hard to get compensation, and they were just told, no, we don't do that. So there are little pockets of protest here and there.
Mhm.